Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio. Tonight it's the Friday night edition, and we have journalism instructor, researcher, author Jason Offutt here for you tonight. It's going to be a great plethora of topics that we are going to discuss with this brilliant mind in the paranormal world. Also, we have each and every one of you in the chat room as well. Let's say hello to Kitty Caddywhack in the gold medal position, Tim Mothman in his goatee with a silver, Race Fan with a bronze medal tonight. Hi there in the studio, Robert Lamoth, Chris 716, and Road Flare. How y'all doing? Preacher is here. Preacher, it will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Scrolling on down, we have Frankie B. Thank you for joining us. Eternity Eternal, JSCO. Mama Catherine, I love you, Mama Catherine. I hope you had a wonderful, wonderful night, and I hope this show suits you just fine. Hi there, Necessary Dialogue. Keith McCormick, how are you guys? Thank you for coming on in. As we continue on with our roll call, there's Ethanol. Mel WD-40 is here lubing us up for tonight's show because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. When you're talking cryptids, it's got to be smooth. No rigidness at all. So, Mel, thank you for the lube tonight. We appreciate it. Les Paul Holland strumming away on his Gibson in Australia. How you doing? Millennium, my man. Corey, how you doing? Walter Kotchabinsky, good to see you. Hillbilly Herb, Fast Hemi, just another guy named Harry. Good to have you all here. Scrolling on down, there's the lovely and talented Deanna Ann. Deanna Ann will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right of the studio. Destiny Rocks, and number 33 in your program, starting in goal tonight from Stockholm, Sweden, Lars Jansson. Jennifer Beveridge, good to see you. And who is next on our list? Oh, let's see here. Scrolling on down. Hippie Deidre, nice to have you here. And Fast Hemi, good to see you. Pam Harris, thanks for coming on in. And Lee the Bee, good to see you. All right. You know, I was screwing around with my computer, trying to get this whole camera thing figured out. And somehow it changed the font on my computer. And it's like really thin, and I'm having trouble seeing it. So bear with me. Debbie Nickerson, good to see you. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Marty Burback, nice to see you. Phineas on X, thanks for coming on in. And who is next on our list? Well, it's Digger Dog. How you doing? Good to see you. Hi there, Christine Lynn. Thanks for coming on in. And who is next here? Let's scroll on down. Rock and Rory, good to see you. Cags, welcome to SOR Chat. And Candy, Pocket Watch, welcome to SOR Chat. Lenda, how are you, my friend? And let's see, scrolling on down, there's Noble Patrick. Good to see you, my friend. Cody Eiler, thanks for joining us. Richard Minnick, good to see you this week. And who is next on our list? Well, let's see here. Flubber Lane, good to have you here. And Richard Minnick, thank you for kicking off the super chat tonight. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you very much, Richard. Always appreciate your love and support. Linda, how are you? And Kevin Kennedy, nice to see you here. All right, who's next? Let's see here. All right, let's get the radio side going. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We are glad to have you here as we have Jason Offutt, author, researcher, instructor. This guy does it all. We're going to have a good time talking some monsters and cryptids with him. We are in roll call on our YouTube side. We're about 35 seconds away from launch. So let's say hello to Plaid Koala. How are you? Scott Blight, good to have you in here. And who is next on our list here? We are caught up. Wow, that was quick. Reminder to all of you, be like Richard. The super chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. And don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Why? We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. You can wear our clothing in public and be proud of it. Throw those horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I'm your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SLR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Read the news wire, check out our site as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find it on our website. We're going to have an amazing show tonight for you. Author, researcher Jason Offutt is here to talk a little bit about monsters. Then in hour number 3, Lee the Bee. No, not Lee the Bee from our chat room. Extra small Lee Strauss will be here for the Cryptid Report. At it. Let's get this show going on the road here because we got a great guest for you tonight. Jason Offutt grew up on a farm in rural Missouri, lived on a steady diet of Star Trek reruns and monster movies. Over the years, Jason's fascination grew for the paranormal, science fiction, and horror and dark fantasy, where things were never what they seem. Jason is best known for his paranormal works, Chasing American Monsters, Darkness Walks, The Shadow People Among Us, and Haunted Missouri. Humorous science fiction, such as his time and dimension hopping novel, So You Had to Build a Time Machine, and his non-zombie zombie novel, Bad Day for the Apocalypse. Now, Jason teaches university journalism and cooks for his family. You can find more about him at jasonoffutt.com. Jason, it's been a few years since we've had you on Spaced Out Radio, but we're sure glad to have you back, my man. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, and it's always a pleasure. And I might have told you this before, but I absolutely love the Ronald Reagan quote from the intro, because I remember listening to that live, and I'm like, wait a second, the president of the United States said what? Some force from outside our planet. That blew my mind.
Really? Why did it affect you the way it did?
Because I'd always believed that there's a great chance, and I believe it even more, that there are extraterrestrials, intelligent ones out there somewhere. I mean, given the amount of planets that we've found in Goldilocks zones already, statistically speaking, there's got to be some intelligent life out there. Looking at the quote that Carl Sagan said at one point, um, if we're the only people, the only intelligent life in the universe, what a waste of space.
I think that is still one of the most profound comments that has ever been made on this subject when Reagan stood up at the United Nations and said that, you know, and it's amazing that we haven't heard another international leader do the same since. I mean, that's going on, 45 years ago, man.
Well, it might have been 10 years ago, but I think he was the ex-Canadian Minister of Defense. Said that there is an alien presence on this planet. I don't remember the guy's name, but
Paul Hellyer.
There we go. Thank you. But that's been about it.
And yet, this topic is red hot more than ever. And you've been covering this a long time about UFOs, about cryptids, about paranormal events. We have so much technology. Everything has become so advanced. Why do you think we're nowhere closer to being closer to an answer?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. It could be that we're not we're technologically advanced a lot more than we ever have been, of course. But we might not be that technologically advanced. Maybe we're not looking in the right places. There are a lot of problems when it comes to. I'm going to have to take my headphones off because it's really causing me some serious problems
No worries,
understanding
man.
what I'm saying.
That's all right. Take them off. Be a rebel. Strip down.
Yeah, I totally am. Let's get rid of these. All right. All right, this is bad radio right now. I am so sorry.
That's all right. I can cover it.
Okay, there we go.
All right.
There we go.
You were saying.
All right, yeah, as I was saying that yeah, when it comes to extraterrestrials, we might not be able to actually determine who they are, what they are. We might not be able to see them. If anybody lives outside of our solar system, is able to come here, it's one of the things that's always annoyed me about people saying, well, the physicality of it, physics, we can't get here, or we can't get there from here, so they can't get here from there. That's our knowledge. Their knowledge is a lot better. If they can get here, their knowledge might be 10,000 years beyond ours. So why couldn't they get here? We're thinking as earthlings, not as somebody who might be more advanced to us. So yes, I really think aliens have been visiting us for quite a long time, and that we just haven't been able to see them. I don't mean see them as in physically see them. I just mean we haven't been able to we can't see something that doesn't want to be seen.
When you look at the entire phenomena in general, what intrigues you about it? What makes you wake up in the morning and say, this is something that I'm interested in? Because it's been a long time for you.
I love things that I don't know anything about. I don't know anything about extraterrestrials. I don't know anything about Bigfoot except for anything I've researched. I don't know anything about time travel except for all of the all of the physics, all of the that I've read, all of the people who've been interested in time travel. So I do know something, but never experienced it. So I don't know about it, and the unknown drives me to find out as much as I possibly can.
Does it still excite you like it did a number of years ago?
100%. When I was a kid, Momo, the Missouri Monster, was, I mean, this was back in the early 70s. There were Bigfoot reports out of Louisiana, Missouri, and he was called Momo. And I was reading it in the newspaper. Here I am, like a 6, 7-year-old kid. I was a newspaper nerd back then, and I was reading about Bigfoot in a newspaper. And I'm like, this has got to be real. Okay, I was excited. I went out in our cornfield that was next to the house looking for Bigfoot footprints. Okay, I was so excited about some unknown animal that was humanoid that might be alive in my state, and I'm still as excited as I was at that age.
Right. Do you think then that a lot of these are legend, or do you think that there is a lot of truth to what we are seeing out there or what people are reporting?
There are so many times that legends from indigenous people, if I can go there, which I will, um, have been proven true. One of my favorite stories has to do with the Democratic Republic of the Congo. There were reports from the indigenous peoples there of a larger than normal chimpanzee that behaved like a gorilla, by making nests when it slept. It would walk on 2 feet primarily, as opposed to knuckle walking. It howled at the moon, and it was capable of killing leopards and lions and eating them. And Western science thought that, yes, whatever, guys. But when scientists went out there and they saw these larger than normal chimpanzees that walked mainly on their hind feet, howled at the moon. They made they made nests. They were capable of killing a leopard, and they would eat it. And okay, so the local legends were right. How many times does that happen? It happens a lot. So there are a lot of whenever I hear stories of indigenous Americans talking about Sasquatch, their views on Sasquatch, I tend to believe them.
I love a good monster story. The weirder, the better. Whether it's Sasquatch sneaking up on somebody, like Scooby Doo used to crawl on his fingers to get out of an area.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love those type of stories. I'm petrified of the dog man. I don't know what I would do if I saw the frogmen of Ohio. I mean, never mind the alien species or ghosts or whatever. There's some weird things that have been seen. The Chicago Mothman, that's another one. I mean, this is stuff that dreams and nightmares are made out of. How do we know that this is just not our imagination for somebody who just wants to, or maybe doesn't know how to recognize a bird from a Mothman or a Sasquatch from a bear?
Well, okay. There are a lot of reports of monsters. The Sasquatch bear thing I can give people. Okay, bears are big, they're hairy, they stand on 2 legs, they can look sort of human-like if you're just taking a glance at it and get scared. I can kind of get that, but there are a lot of monster encounters that I don't get. I just wrote about one tonight of a monster in a river in Alabama that was reported to be it's one of those serpents. It's a serpent type monster about 40 feet long. It would raise its head about 4 feet out of the water. The head was horse like, And what people finally decided was it was a bunch of groups of leaves that were massed in the water, and when they started to decompose, they rose out of the water. I'm like, wait a second, those two things don't really match. Somebody doesn't see a snake-like head or a snake-like neck with a horse head raise out of the water, and it end up being a bunch of leaves that are decomposing. So eyewitness accounts are generally discounted when it comes to court cases and things like that. But when it comes to people seeing monsters, I don't really discount them a lot. You can misidentify things. I heard a woman screaming one night when I was a kid, and I tried to get my dad. I'm like, come on, we got to go rescue this person. I lived on a farm, and he's like, that's a bobcat. So there are misidentifications, but
Yes,
some of these things cannot be misidentified, I don't think.
Isn't it also the thrill of the chase that just in case there is something there?
I have to say yes. I mean, why do explorers go out and look for these beasts? Just in case they can find them. I mean, I've always wondered if people going out to hunt for Bigfoot, they're in a forest. They're waiting in the dark and they hear a wood knock. And they're excited because they think they're hearing a Bigfoot. Well, that might be another Bigfoot hunter across, about a mile away doing wood knocks, trying to get a response. But the excitement is there. Yeah, absolutely.
I think that what makes the excitement for me is when you have that first encounter with a ghost or a cryptid or even a UFO or more or something different. It's that adrenaline rush mixed with fear that absolutely just captivates you. It's like people who bungee jump or jump out of an airplane. They do it for the rush. It's the same type of rush, the same adrenaline, but it's just in a different form because you're seeing something that, your eyes are looking at and your brain can't quite comprehend. And that's the rush of it all for me.
Right. When I saw a UFO when I was about 15 years old, I really couldn't explain it logically to myself, and I still can't. I don't really know if I got that big of a rush. I was stupefied. I could not really understand what I was seeing unless it was a UFO. And even at that time, I believed, that extraterrestrials are absolutely possible. When I saw a full-bodied apparition when I was a kid, it stopped me in my tracks. Didn't frighten me. All it did was make me curious about what else was out there, because I saw something that shouldn't exist, but it did.
What did you feel like seeing that as a kid?
I was in a bit of shock. I stood there. I remember standing there, staring at him. He had brown hair, parted on the right side. He was about 6 years old, wearing a blue flannel shirt and blue jeans, and I could see through him. And I just remember standing there staring at him, having absolutely no idea what I was looking at, because there were no children around my farm other than me, no small children. And I was about 8, 9, 10, something like that. And I could see the bookshelf through him, and I knew I had to be seeing a ghost. And I was pretty shocked, and I stood there until he blinked, because we were staring at each other, and he blinked, and that kind of broke my shock. I mean, we could have been staring at each other for 2 minutes or 15 seconds. I have no idea. But I just turned around and went back into my bedroom and shut the door and didn't talk to anybody about it for at least 30 years.
A lot of people have trouble talking about their experiences and stories and of their encounters or close encounters. Why is it, from a journalism point of view and a researcher point of view, for people to, you know, reach out and tell people like you or me or, you know, even on Facebook or wherever to come out and tell their stories? Why do you feel that's important?
Well, it used to hold a stigma, which is why I kept my mouth shut for so long. When I wrote my first book on a paranormal topic, which was Haunted Missouri back in 2007, there was a section of the state that I couldn't get anybody to talk to me, which was southeastern Missouri, which is the buckle in the Bible Belt. Nobody wanted to talk about ghosts. But I've noticed that ever since then, with the proclivity of ghost hunting shows and all sorts of paranormal media, people have opened up a lot more. I wrote a newspaper column called From the Shadows for 4.5 years, and every week I had a paranormal themed column, and I had interviews every single week from people who had encountered something. So the attitude has changed in America from being afraid that they'd be considered a nut to being open with their story. And as a journalist, I know people who've done things in their life, even if they don't necessarily want to talk about them. If they know somebody is interested, they generally will open up. And that's happened over the past 10, 15 or more years with people who've had paranormal encounters. They want to tell their story. And one of the positive things is they find out that they're not alone. They didn't, experience something. 20 years ago, I saw this ghost in my bathroom. He was shaving, because they'll find out somebody else had the exact same experience as them, and it'll make them feel better.
The idea that people are still a little bit tight-lipped about their experiences. A lot of people will think it's embarrassment there, but I think it's more the fear of getting laughed at, the fear of getting a finger point and say that's the weird person, the fear of losing family, the fear of losing friends, and being called the crazy one at work. I mean, there's a social acceptance that comes along with that. Like, I know in my small town, people know me as the ghost guy and the Bigfoot guy. And I didn't at first when I started hearing that, I was like, do I really want that reputation? And now I know it's kind of cool. It points me out. I don't care if people think I'm weird.
Well, which I get that. I'm that way too. I've been that way for a while here, but it is kind of comforting because people will approach me and tell me things that they wouldn't tell anybody else. Okay, so I'm an outlet for people who've encountered, something paranormal, a dog man. I talked to a guy who claimed he was possessed by a demon when he was younger, and that his father tried to exorcise it, and it failed. And I've talked to a lot of people who've done a lot of things, and it's because they know that I'm not going to make fun of them.
Well, I'm going to get you to hold on right there, Jay, because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. When we come back with Jason Offutt, we're going to get into some of his favorite cryptid encounters and stories that he's researched over the years. This is Spaced Out Radio. JasonOffutt.com is his website. We'll be right back. All right, Jay, we're clear.
Hey,
Just a
dude, I hope
reminder,
I'm doing okay. Like I
You're
told
doing
you,
great.
I'm on a couple of different couple of different allergy meds, and I'm kind of flying high right now, brother.
For people complaining about the audio in the chat room, especially the new people, it comes out great on the podcast side. StreamYard has a real problem between blending audio and music at the same, or two strands of audio at the same time, so it bleeds into each other. That's the issue. So, best I could say, you got to put up with it on the YouTube side. If you want it sounding clean, you got to go to their archives on our podcast side. It'll be fine. But thanks for your concern. I appreciate it. Michelle Wilfong, how are you? That's the one thing I hate about StreamYard, man, is I got to figure that out, that bleeding out. But it just seems to be part of the program. It's one of the flaws. Yeah, you're doing great, Jay.
All right, man. Yeah, if I'm rambling, man, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, dude, you're doing great. I wouldn't even be concerned. I'd tell you if you sounded like crap.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. Man, it's been a weird day. I've been contemplating most of the day why Michelangelo's God, creating David on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. I've been contemplating why David's got a belly button. Not David, Adam. Why Adam's got a belly button. Why the hell does Adam have a belly button, man? I don't know.
God.
That's been my day.
Why do you do this to me? Why do you do this to me? Ugh. Why the hell does Adam have a belly button?
Yeah. God just feels sorry for my wife.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, yeah, I've been I'm working on a book right now called Chasing the World's Monsters. It's a follow-up to my book that's coming out in September, Chasing North American Monsters, which in itself is a follow-up of Chasing American Monsters, which came out in 2020 or 2019. So lots of monsters in the world.
I love it. I love it. We need more monster stories. We totally do.
Yeah, I love monsters.
I think it's amazing.
I watched a newscast, a clip of a newscast from God, where was it? I don't remember where it was, but it was about a Bigfoot encounter, and they were making fun of it and saying, "Oh, it was in Pennsylvania," and the newscaster was like, "Aren't Bigfoot just in the Pacific Northwest?" Like, yeah, don't study this stuff before you can make fun of it. And these things are everywhere.
Them's Bigfoots are everywhere, man.
They're like roaches.
You gotta watch out for them Bigfoots.
You know what, man? Whenever the bomb lands, the only thing left on this planet's gonna be cockroaches and Bigfoots.
Oh Oh God, that was awesome. That was awesome. Awesome, I tell you. All right, we got about 30 seconds. Thank you tonight to Richard for our lone super chat. Oob to Joe's Main, you've got aliens. And remember, the super chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Don't forget to shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Why? We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. There is no ugly swag there at our store. Here we go, everybody. Here we go, second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We appreciate you putting us in wherever you are. Reminder to all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. Author, researcher Jason Offutt is here. We're going to get into some big-time monster stories here because there's one thing Jason Offutt loves, and that's writing about cryptids and legends. Jason, thank you so much for being here. Where can people find your books?
They're at all the major booksellers, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, everything out there. My website, got all my books listed there as well, jasonoffutt.com.
Nice. Appreciate you sharing. When you go looking for stories and legends about Bigfoot, what are you looking for? What makes a good story for you?
When Bigfoot especially, I love the big hairy guy because I think that if any cryptid is going to be discovered, probably going to be Bigfoot. I've got a few others in the wings, but that's my big guy. Anyway, what do I look for? I look for credible sightings. I want sightings from multiple people. I want people who don't really crave the attention. There are people who would go and report. There was a sighting in Nebraska back in the early 1970s. I can't remember the name of the city, but it was a young couple. They had a farm, they had some pigs, and they heard pigs squealing, and the dog started barking, and the husband grabbed a gun and went outside because he thought a coyote or something was attacking the pigs. And he saw about a 7-8 foot tall hairy creature after his, trying to pick his pig up, and he shot at it and missed, and the thing ran away. And when it ran away, the dog stopped barking. I like that kind of encounter because that person didn't really want to be in the press. He just simply called the police to talk about, there was something trying to steal my pig, and investigators came out and they were, found these huge footprints, and there were a number of other similar encounters in the area. The same with Momo the Missouri Monster back in the early 1970s in Louisiana, Missouri. None of these people tried to get attention. There was no viral media back then. They didn't want the press converging on them. They just wanted a problem solved. They had a monster that was threatening them, and they wanted the police to take care of it. Those type of encounters are the ones I really like. Whenever whenever somebody like Tom Biscardi comes out and says, "Oh, I've got a Bigfoot in a freezer in Georgia," those are the things that I definitely watch out for.
I look at it when I look for a good story is something that is capturing my attention. Now, that's a vague answer to make, but you know what? We've heard all the popular stories. Give me something that is going to be irregular. It may be a Bigfoot, but maybe it's a Bigfoot story where, people can't fish at a certain lake because they get rocks thrown at them. To me, that's a great story. There's always got to be something to add to it, which makes it a great encounter. And how do you find these when you're researching? What's tipping you off? Are you going through Google to find local legends? How are you doing it?
Well, I'm doing some of that. I go through a lot of newspaper archives because I want, I'm an old school journalist. I still believe in newspaper credibility. So I go through a lot of newspaper archives looking for stories like this. I also look for, what you're talking about, different stories. There was this story from South Dakota about a Bigfoot that liked to peep through windows, and he wore a top hat. There's one in Canada. He's called Old Yellow Top because he's got a great mane of yellow hair. Sort of a Billy Ray Cyrus kind of mullet. I like different stories like that. But, I also kind of like the ones that are all the same because that makes me think, if I'm hearing the same story, not just all around the country, not just all around the continent, but all around the world, yeah, maybe there's something to this.
There could be. There could be. So, what is one of your favorite encounters that you have covered?
Oh, of any monster or just Bigfoot?
Let's talk Bigfoot first.
Let's talk Bigfoot. It would have to be. I'm going to go back to Momo. Um, there were in the summer of 1973. There were two girls. They were in high school. They're having a picnic in a park on a hill outside of town, and while they were sitting on the blanket, eating their picnic lunch, they smelled something terrible. It was either dead or it was a skunk. They didn't know what it was, and when they looked toward the tree line, they saw this 7 to 8 foot tall humanoid hairy creature, didn't have a neck, um, glaring at them. And they did what normal people would do, not people from horror movies. People from horror movies would have walked toward it. No, they were normal people. They screamed and ran to their car. And they got in their car and locked the doors, and they left their purses on the blanket. They left them on the picnic blanket, and the keys were in one of the purses, and they couldn't go anywhere. And the creature walked up the hill toward the car, pressed its face into the glass looking at them, and they were absolutely horrified. And they honked the horn, and eventually it ran away, and they felt safe enough to go back to the blanket and grab the car keys and get out of there. But I like that story because, one, I'm not one of those two girls, and two, that is so horrifying. It is so scary to think that this monster was pressing its face inches away from yours and you couldn't do anything about it. That's a great encounter. And yeah, I don't ever want to be in that situation.
I'm surprised they didn't have heart attacks.
Well, they were young. They may have, pooped themselves, but I have no idea. So that's not on record.
Oh man. Now you've talked to these people?
I didn't talk to those two. That was from newspaper accounts. I have talked to people who've encountered Bigfoot, but not those.
When you were looking at a story like that, that is absolutely terrifying, close encounter like that, do you think the creature is trying to hurt them, or do you think it's just human emotion because they weren't used to what they were seeing?
If the creature was trying to hurt them, given the size and supposed strength of Bigfoot, it could have. So I don't think that it was trying to hurt them. I mean, there have been plenty of reports of Bigfoot ripping up trees, carrying off full-grown hogs, which can be up to 400 plus pounds. If these creatures didn't, if it didn't want to hurt those girls, it didn't. So I mean, if it wanted to, it would have. So yeah, I've heard stories about violent, angry Bigfoot, but those are fairly rare. I think these are fairly placid type creatures who want to be left alone.
I'm always of the belief with Bigfoot that it allows you to see him. You don't see him, it allows you. What's your thoughts on that theory?
I agree with that completely. Unless it's a complete accident. I'm not of the um, mystical spiritual Bigfoot belief. I still think it's unless I'm proven otherwise, or unless it's proven otherwise, I think Bigfoot's flesh and blood. But I grew up in the country and I spent a lot of time in the woods, and there have been a number of times that large animals like deer. I mean, a deer is not as big. A white-tailed deer is not as big as a Bigfoot. It's still kind of a big animal. There have been times to where I've been walking through the woods and a deer that I had no clue was close to me would get up about 5-10 feet away and just bolt off because I scared it, and I had no idea what was there. If that can do it, and if Bigfoot is intelligent, which it most probably is, it could probably hide a lot better than a white-tailed deer. So I agree with the if Bigfoot wants us to see it, it'll let us. But there are also cases where we'll stumble upon it and catch it off guard.
Yeah, I think that happens, but for the most part, for people who are going on out, thinking that they gotta, wear ghillie suits and run through the trails and hide underneath fallen logs and everything along those lines, it's not like that. No offense. It's not the Todd Standing way of trying to track these things down. No offense to Todd Standing. Whatever works for him,
Mhm.
works for him. But I mean, this is something where the most encounters that are seen is from people who have no idea that it's happening. They're not out there
Mhm.
searching for it. They have never maybe even believed in the creature. Sure, they probably heard about it, but thought it was just all fallacy and rumors and storytelling, creepy pasta. And then all of a sudden, boom, you know, they're floating down a river on an inner tube, and next thing they know, there's a Sasquatch standing on the bank, walking
Yeah.
away. I mean, you never know what that encounter is going to entail, but it just seems to happen randomly.
No, Dave,
And
I'm right there with you. Anybody who goes out looking for Bigfoot, who goes out looking for ghosts, who goes out looking, to see, lights in the sky or whatever, they're most probably wasting their time because all of these things happen when they happen. You can't go out and try to make it happen. It's all accidental from the viewer's perspective. Totally.
now you did say something that you believe Sasquatch is flesh and blood.
Yes, there are a lot of people who, I mean, right now, a lot of people are in Sasquatch, they disappear in the woods. They, their footprints just, they stop They don't go anywhere else. So they're interdimensional, or they're spiritual, or whatever they want to lay on them. Okay, I'm not against that, but I would like somebody to prove or disprove that they're flesh and blood before I'll go into something mystical or spiritual. It's the same with UFOs. They're I tend to believe they're nuts and bolts craft, and unless somebody proves that they're not, that's what I'm gonna put my money on.
I tend to disagree
Okay.
politely and respectfully, and only because I have had a Sasquatch disappear right in front of me. And it scared, like, it didn't scare us, but four of us watched this thing just vanish. We don't know how it left. This was in 2022. And this was a big creature, man. This was about a 10-footer. We measured it towards an 8-foot tree that was standing right beside it. And I could tell you, man, if it went to its left, our right, it would have had to climb over a bunch of fallen logs. We would have heard it. We would have seen it go that way. We would have heard it. If it went to its right, our left, we would have seen it cross the logging road and go up an embankment. If it went backwards, we would have seen it disappear into the darkness because we saw it at night. And if it came forward, we would have seen it because it would have come forward. And just poof, it was gone. Like vanish. And it was standing there having that classic Sasquatch pose, man. The side profile pose. It was amazing.
What did it smell like?
It was 80 yards away. And my nose is so screwed up from too many years of hockey that I don't even know if I could smell it anyways.
All right. And the thing with this is, there's no offense here. I'm not gonna argue or counter anything, because if anybody, and this goes with every aspect of the paranormal, if anybody says they know 100% what's happening, what's right, they're wrong. Because
I would agree with you.
Yeah, I'm really big on science. Science, really poo-poos most of the paranormal. That's just because it hasn't been proven yet. Science, relies on proof. As soon as something is proven, it's real. And all this stuff is going to be proven to be real at some point, I think. I think a lot of paranormal enthusiasts or researchers are really down on scientists because they don't believe. Well, scientists don't believe squat. They deal in facts. So, what you saw is what you saw, man.
I think for me, one of the mysteries about whether or not it is interdimensional or I like to say something special. There's something special about it, because realistically, we don't know. We don't know. Could be flesh and blood, could be dimensional, could be alien, could be of inner earth, whatever it may be.
Well, you know what? All that could be the same thing. It could be all the above.
But my question on that would be to you, okay, is the idea of the whole aspect of the single footprint. You don't, people who are investigating don't get a lot of straight tracks, man. You don't get 5, 6, 10 tracks in a row. And if you do, you're lucky. You might get one, and then in 30 feet, you get another one, and it's the same footprint. And where I kind of look at this, my friend, is I live in the middle of nowhere. Okay, when we go to our Sasquatch spots, one is about 20 miles into the forest, the other one is about 35 miles into the forest. And when we find tracks there, they're not close together. And there's not going to be somebody running around putting one track here, another track there. where I live, there's 2,500 people. So seeing somebody in the forest 25 miles into the forest is very, very unlikely. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. And I'm not saying somebody's out there putting tracks down. I mean, that's the Wallace thing from the 1950s. Here's my deal on Sasquatch being flesh and blood. Of all accounts, it's supposed to be intelligent. So if Sasquatch is intelligent and lives in the woods, that's where it was raised, that's where it was born, and that's what it knows, who's to say it's not such a good woodsman that it can hide its tracks, that it can, because if you get a good woodsman, you're not going to be able to follow him anywhere. So who's to say Sasquatch can't hide its tracks? I mean, we don't know. I'm just throwing things out there.
Oh, I think that's logical, and there's no illogical questions out there. And like I was saying to our guest the other night, Brent Thomas, I was at a Bigfoot conference last year where there was a couple of real scientific people there, and this conference was held on native land. And so you have all the First Nations people there who are very spiritual about it, and very, believing that Sasquatch has magical powers and everything. And I very much respect their opinion, and then you have these guys standing up on stage right in front of them, making fun of everything that could be potentially woo. They're better than that. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
This one guy is up there, and to be honest with you, I forget his name. I know what he looks like. I could see him. And he's got his college professor type sport coat on, and he's up there, and he's, just ragging on the woo side. So I get up there the next day, and I looked right at him on stage, and I said, unlike other speakers here, the truth of the matter is we do not know what this is.
Mm-hmm.
There is no proof. Yes, we have evidence, but there is no proof to deny anything about this creature being magical or being flesh and blood. If we had a body, that's completely different. Now we have something to work on. We don't have a body. So therefore, to rule things out, you cannot use opinion as science. That dude, my friend, would not talk to me the rest of the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
He thought I was just the biggest jerk because of it.
Well, no, I don't doubt he didn't talk to you because you called him out, and you were right. Lack of evidence doesn't mean something is wrong. It just means that they don't have enough. You don't have enough evidence yet. And that's what I think about Bigfoot. Except, there's so much evidence out there, or at least if there was a murder trial and you presented footprints, fingerprints, hair samples, you could get a conviction with the amount of Bigfoot evidence out there.
You totally could. Even with the UFO evidence that's out there. We have more video evidence and eyewitness testimony on UFOs that could convict somebody of the truth of this in absolutely no time. But because it's UFOs, we need more evidence. We need something more concrete. It's such a double standard, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I was 14 years old, I grew up on a farm. My dad pulled in. It was planting time, and he stayed out late at night to plant, and he didn't come in. He didn't come in the house. My mom said, "Jason, go out and check on your dad." So I went out, and he was leaning against his truck, looking up in the sky, on the farm at the farm field between our house and the next farmhouse. And he said, "Do you see that?" And there was a black spot. It looked like, a hole punched.
Hold that story. Hold that story. We're going to go to break here at the top of the hour. Jason Offutt is our guest. Find us on the website, jasonoffutt.com. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, we are clear. Jason, I'm going to put you back in the green room. We got about 6 minutes here before we got to come back and do the second hour.
All right, I'm going to go to the bathroom.
All right. Be right back, everybody. I am back, and we got about a minute left here. All right. All right. Having fun, man?
I am, dude. I'm still concerned. I'm like I said, I'm tired and loopy on allergy meds.
Oh, me too. We have something in common.
Yeah.
Jorgensen, how you doing? All right. Big thank you tonight to Tim Mothman and his goatee, Fast Hemi, Rose, and Richard for the super chats. Always appreciate the love and support, everybody. Thank you very much. Ross Smith, how you doing? And yeah. Joanne, how are you? Yeah, we need Preacher at the Vegas party. Here we go. Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. Wherever you are on this hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Taradiddle. Taradiddle is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. All right, let's head to our good friend Jason Offutt. He's an author, researcher, loves monsters. You can find all of his books on his website, jasonoffutt.com. Jason, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, and again, thank you for the invitation.
That is wonderful. We love it that you are here, my friend. What has it been, about 6 years since you've been on?
Has it been that long? Doesn't seem like it.
I know.
You should have me on more often.
We probably should have. You should kick our butt for that.
Okay. I'll plan on it.
You love to write about monsters. You love to write about cryptids. We hear a lot about Bigfoot. Out of all the monsters out there that you have heard, what is the one that scares you the most? Do you have a story about it?
Oh, a monster that scares me the most, and I have a story. This is more of a spiritual being than a monster, but shadow people. I guess we can classify those as a monster. Those kind of scare the hell out of me because when I was a kid in my house, growing up, I was about 8 years old. I am showing how old I am because there was a Farrah Fawcett poster on the wall across from my bed. It's the one with the maroon swimsuit. Anyway, I was laying in bed one night as a kid, just turned the lights off, was laying down, and I grew up in the country. We had the curtains up, so light. My room was always light, and everything was gray, and I could see Farrah. And in one corner, it was really dark, and all of a sudden, a black shape stepped out. And it walked. It was human-like. It was seemed to be two-dimensional, and it just walked clumsily past my bed into the hallway and absolutely scared the hell out of me. And I screamed for my dad, and he dropped a couple of cuss words and turned his light on, walked down the hall that the shadow person had just walked through, And I was scared that I just killed my father. But he walked into my bedroom and he said, "What the hell's going on?" And I told him, and he just said, "Go back to sleep." And this thing repeated itself every few nights over the next, 3 to 4 months. And those beings scared me more than anything that I've ever been scared of before. It was human like, it was dark, and it was in my room. And it was terrifying.
Did it ever come at you?
No. I wrote a book on shadow people back in 2009 called Darkness Walks, and I interviewed lots of people like religious experts. I interviewed physicists and other scientists about it, and I interviewed probably about 250 people who'd also encountered these type of beings all over the planet, and some of them had actually had terrifying experiences. Some people had been physically attacked, but for me, they just walked by me, didn't even pay attention to me.
Do you think that it wanted to harm you?
No, I in my research, I kind of fit the shadow people into categories. The ones I saw, I referred to as benign shadows because they didn't pay any attention to me whatsoever. If they had of, I probably would have peed the bed a lot later in life. Uh, but they seemed to be going from point A to point B, and my bedroom was just in the way. There were other shadow people who terrified the people who saw them intentionally, like they were causing fear and feeding off of that energy. Um, some of them were even worse, but the ones that I experienced, I kind of thought maybe, and with some some of the people I interviewed kind of agreed with this, that they might have just been. Let me go back to something John Keel, the famous paranormal journalist, wrote, that there are window areas in the world where the veil between dimensions and realities are thin, and some things can walk through. One of the things for him being Mothman. Um,
Yeah.
for me, that would kind of explain my shadow people. Maybe they were just people in another dimension, and that's all I could see of them. But that's just me speculating because I have no idea what I saw. I just know that they were walking purposefully through my room, and they had no idea I was there.
Many people who have had encounters with shadow people say that they almost feel like something ominous is coming, that it's kind of a harbinger of darkness to come in their lives, whether it's losing a job or a relationship, maybe a car accident, or something that happens with them. Have you ever noticed that happening with people in your research?
Well, yeah, not of course, not of course with me, but I interviewed a professor who specialized in the Hopi mythology, and for the Hopi, these shadow type beings are harbingers. They're omens of death. Um, I worked with a woman, not a Hopi, but she was talking to me about a shadow being. She saw a shadow out of the corner of her eye, which is generally how people see shadow people at first, at least, kind of a shadow out of the corner of their eye. And I said, just keep telling me about it. And she did, and it kept coming more into focus for her, more into from her periphery into her straight view. And when she could see this shadow being straight on, her husband was diagnosed with stage 4 esophageal cancer. And after her husband died, she didn't see it anymore. So the shadow person as an omen of death really seems to be accurate.
I remember listening to an old Art Bell episode. This is going back probably to 2005, where he was talking about shadow people. And when they come around, they seem to come around when people are at their most depressed, vulnerable, darkest times in their lives. And I was living in a basement suite at that time. My ex-wife and I had separated, and life was not very easy for me at that time. And I remember, to get to the entrance of my suite in the house, I had to go past, open up the gate, go past the side yard, go to the back of the house, and then my entrance was underneath the patio. And this one night, I had one of those sensor lights at my front door. And this one night, I walked and I noticed the sensor light on as I was coming home, and it kind of freaked me out because I didn't know whether it was a bear, I didn't know whether it was a mountain lion, I didn't know whether it was a raccoon or a rabbit or whatever it might be that had the light on, let alone hopefully not a person. And so I kind of took the corner slow and wide so I could see the front door or my front door. And standing at the door, staring at the door, was a shadow person. And it was completely cartoonish, my friend. Like what a child would draw, like with the block arms and the block body. There was no feet, there was no hands. It was a round head, and it was just staring there. And then it turned its entire body, looked at me, did a 180, and took off like it was running without feet right through the cement barrier wall on the other side. And I looked at that and I thought, what the hell was that? I didn't know whether to cringe, whether to be freaked out, whether to laugh. It was like, you got to be kidding me right now.
I've talked to a lot of people who've had very similar shadow people encounters. And it's like some of them, whenever you notice them and they notice that you see them, it freaks them out and they run away. I talked with a guy who he said he was sitting in his living room watching TV, and he felt that somebody was staring at him, and he looked toward the kitchen the doorway, and there was a shadow person standing there looking at him. And as soon as the shadow person realized that he was seeing him, the shadow person just bolted, and there was a crash from the kitchen. And he shot up and went to the kitchen to see what was going on. And he saw the shadow person running across the deck and then through the backyard and then into the distance. But there was a double pane glass door, and it shattered the first pane of the glass and not the second one. And it again, it was, he saw it and it didn't expect him to, and it ran away. And again, that is that's really, really common when it comes to shadow people encounters. They seem to be observing us. Why? I don't know.
Do you think they're regular spirits, or do you think that they are something a little bit more ominous?
There are a number of shadow people cases that I do think are regular spirits. There are a lot of residual ghost type encounters to where a shadow person will walk down the stairs and turn a corner and go into the kitchen. And it'll do that every once in a while. That's a residual ghost type of encounter.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of ones that seem to be watching us, like that, like yours, like the one I just described, who are shocked when we see them. There are other ones that have hats. There are ones like a fedora, and ones that have red eyes, red glowing eyes, sometimes yellow, but usually red. And they seem to be feeding off of our energy, like, spiritual vampire type things. Um, so there are a number of different types of shadow people. I really think that they're not one thing. They are a number of different entities that just look the same.
Makes sense. Where do you think they come from?
Some are absolutely demonic. I've interviewed a Catholic archbishop who is an exorcist. I interviewed experts in Islam and Hinduism and Buddhism, and all these major religions have shadow people type beings in their mythology. In Christian religion, they're demons. In Islam, they're the jinn. In Hinduism, that's the nicest one. They're considered spirits that are going from one incarnation to the next. Uh, the Buddhist I interviewed told me he didn't want to talk about it. One of the more interesting was the Cherokee shaman I talked to said that these are, in at least in their belief system, their mythology, these type of entities are healers. They're shamans who have used their powers for greed, to do bad things, to benefit from it, and not help other people. And it has turned them into something that is less than human. And the scary part of that is about that is he said you can run into one of these people at Walmart and not know that they will at night become one of these entities that will feed off of your energy when it turns dark. But yeah, and again, it's just all over the world. This type of shadow entity is pretty common.
What do you think has happened to the reports of black-eyed kids?
I'm glad they're gone. I haven't heard one in forever. I covered them fairly extensively when they came out. The first major report was by Brian Bethel, a reporter from Texas back in the late 1990s, and I interviewed him about this. He was working one night late because that's what newspaper people do, and he went to pay his cable bill because it was the 90s and you had cable back then. And he went to the strip mall and he was writing the check in his car. He was going to drop it through the night slot, and two kids came up to the door of his car. One was about 16, one was about 14, and they demanded that he take them back to their house so they could get money to go to a movie that was already playing at the strip mall theater. And he wanted to open the door. He just felt like a need to unlock the door and open it and let these kids in. And then he noticed the eyes that looked like shark eyes staring at them, and it freaked him out, and he tore out of there. And he said they freaking vanished. They should have been in his rearview mirror when he pulled out, but they were just gone. He said that years later that he still avoids that strip mall because he doesn't want to remember them. But these things, I've interviewed people. I mean, from Australia to Saudi Arabia, Africa, Europe, all across North America and South America. I interviewed a guy from Brazil about an encounter, and for a while they were pretty terrifying across the world, and I haven't heard anything about them. And I'm going to get back to this in a second, but I'm going to ask you a question. Have you heard very much about black-eyed kids in the past 5 years?
I have heard one encounter, and that was from my friend in Washington State, Jeremy Rice. And he had, or Jacob Rice, pardon me, he had an encounter that was actually caught on film. He had somebody buzz. He lives in a rural area of Washington State, and all of a sudden he heard this buzzing at his gate, and his dog started going crazy. Ran up to the fence because he has like 7 pit bulls, and this kid kept on asking to use the phone. Long story short, Jake wouldn't give him his phone and said, "Who can I dial for you?" Turns his back, and the kid vanishes. Right. And this was in January, February, like winter time, and there was some snow on the ground. There was no tracks, no nothing. He went back to check his security footage, and he could see the dog going crazy. He could see himself talking to someone, but he could not see the kid on the other side of the fence. And he should have been able to see the kid. He said it was absolutely creepy. This kid just vanished.
Right. I've heard stories very much like that. One of the things that after writing about them for a while and a number of different paranormal entities, I'm fairly convinced that there are entities out there that appear to be what's popular in the media at the time. You know, when Slender Man was big, I got a lot of reports from people who saw Slender Man. And I'm like, this was made up. This is a completely fictional character. But it was in the zeitgeist, and there was so much energy pumped into people talking about Slender Man that people were actually seeing it. I think when it comes to black-eyed kids, it was the same thing. When it was shadow people, it was the same thing. That there are, again, it's just me speculating, that there are entities out there that appear as what we are thinking they will appear to be. There have been plenty of plenty of examples with authors who have spent so much time with a character in their head and on the paper or on the computer that they will actually have seen them. The creator of Constantine supposedly saw Constantine, his character, a couple of different times out in public. You know, maybe it's a topic thing when it comes to you know, things like, you know, black-eyed kids and you know, Slender Man and shadow people.
Hold that thought. When we return with Jason Offutt, some onions.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, man. We're clear.
Okay.
Line on by. Line on by.
That photo on the bottom of the screen, about the dude with the hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had hair like that back in the 80s.
I wanted hair like that. I had very strict parents.
I didn't, and I don't have very much hair left. So I'm glad I had it at one point.
Mm-hmm. A few years ago, I grew my hair down to about my chest level. And, well, you know, I'm older, so I'm saggy up there, you know, so I grew it down, and my mom was going crazy. And she's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Mom," I said, "you're a 2-time cancer survivor." I said, "I'm donating my hair." I said, "I've always wanted to do that, so that's what I'm growing it out for." Then it all of a sudden was okay.
Yeah. Did you
My
do
dad
what
was
you
like,
promised your mom?
"Pardon me?"
Did you do what you promised to your mother?
You know what? It's actually a really sad story. I had a lady in my chat room who lived down in Phoenix, and she asked me for my hair because she was allegedly going through cancer treatment and losing her hair. So I did this thing on social media. I went and got my hair cut. We donated it. I mailed it off to her. And then I found out she never had cancer.
What an asshole.
Yeah. True story. Like she disappeared out of my chat room, and then like 3 months later she was saying that she was cured of cancer. You don't get cured of cancer.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, she never had it. I was so pissed off because I really wanted that to be a great moment, and that idiot stole it from me.
You can still grow more hair.
Oh, I've got more hair. Yeah, I'm gonna grow it here as soon as I get back down to one job.
Damn, dude, you got a lot of hair.
Oh, dude, there is not a single hole of male pattern baldness here.
Damn, man, I am envious as hell.
I got some hair for you if you need me to send it.
Man, I've told because I used to have long hair. I loved long hair. I told my wife as soon as I retire, I'm gonna grow a skullet.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I have my last long hair in the studio. I have dudes who will send me their beards. I have a beard collection in here.
That's kind of
No,
weird.
my hair does not cure cancer. It's powerful, but not that powerful. Yeah, dude, you have no idea how freaking mad I was at that when I found that shit out.
Yeah, I can only imagine, man. That's awful.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah. And then after I found out, she would come into our chat room. "Hello, Davey. How you doing? How you doing today, handsome?" and all this. And I just eventually blocked her. Like, I was just like, you don't deserve to be ever near this show again. So that was that. Mm-hmm. Sweet Robbie G. I bet you have a picture of a mullet. I want to see that picture of you in a mullet, Sweet Robbie G. Mm-hmm. Lionel Richie hair from back in like 84 during the Dancing on the Ceiling hit parade.
Hello, is it me you're looking for?
Mm-hmm. Lionel Richie had a power mustache back then.
Oh, it was badass. It was a great mustache.
I don't know who had a better mustache, Lionel Richie or John Oates.
Oh, Richie. No, Richie, totally.
Tokeland, how you doing? Thank you to Tim times 2, Fast Hemi, Rose, and Richard for the super chats tonight. Greatly appreciate the love. And we got about 7 seconds. Here we go with the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We're talking monsters with Jason Offutt. His website, jasonoffutt.com. We'll get to Jason here. Before we bring Jason on, we want to remind all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, our archives are always free on YouTube and every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. All right, Jason Offutt, we have until the top of the hour. We're talking monsters and legends. And right before the break, you were talking about how black-eyed children just seems to have disappeared, my man.
Right. Yeah, I haven't heard anything about black-eyed kids for years. And what I was saying before the break was it seems to me like these things come in waves, or they show up and they disappear. I also mentioned shadow people. I haven't heard a lot of encounters of those lately. I haven't heard. I also mentioned Slender Man, which is, I will, say again, it was a creepypasta. It was completely fictional, but I did talk to people who claim to have seen it. So there are probably entities out there in my opinion, maybe even my belief system. Hell, I don't know. That work off of the energy that we as humans put out. And if we are thinking a lot about shadow people, there are going to be like shadow people encounters. If we put out a lot of energy about black-eyed kid encounters, there are going to be black-eyed kid encounters. Whenever any sort of UFO or Bigfoot or lake monster sort of reports come out, there seem to be a whole lot of reports similar that come out right after them. I have nothing really to base that on other than a personal opinion, but to me it makes sense.
Okay, so the idea that these monsters may come and go as they please, is that why we have so few accounts of, say, the frogmen of Ohio or the goat man of Texas? I mean, there seems to be a lot of cryptids out there that just people don't see them for years on end, decades even.
Right. It could be. It could be that there, that my preposition here is that there are entities out there that are greater than what we're talking about. And sometimes they might appear as one thing. And if we start thinking about something else, they might change to that. Hell, all the Kardashians might be what we thought were, Bigfoot 20 years ago. I have no idea. But the thing is, I do believe that our energy could create tulpic beings, tulpas, which are creatures created by mainly pure thought, thinking about them. If you think about something hard enough, it will happen. And that might be what some of these types of creatures are. Once they get into the public eye and more people are thinking about them, that they show up more and more.
Let's move to another question here from our audience as we continue on. Let's go over to in the studio. One of the accounts that you were talking about earlier, was that in Beatrice, Nebraska, one of my favorite towns? That is where I seen what looked to be like a black bear got run over and slid into a ditch and ran off.
It wasn't, and that's Beatrice. We in the Midwest don't pronounce things correctly, so it's Beatrice, Nebraska. No, it wasn't. God, I can't. I should look it up. I should look it up right now. I can't remember the name of the encounter, but it wasn't Beatrice.
All right, let's move on. Follow up from in the studio. Do you know anything about the Terminator Sasquatch?
I did hear a Linda Moulton Howe report on Coast to Coast AM back in the 90s, where a man reported hiking in the mountains and was he encountered a Sasquatch who made servo noises, and he reported seeing something mechanical come out of his head. That's the only thing I know about a Terminator Sasquatch.
Many of the Sasquatch researchers believe that there are these different species of this, including what they call a gugway, which is supposed to be a very violent killer Sasquatch that takes out anything that it wants. You ever heard of that?
Well, I haven't heard of that particular name, but there are like three or four different Sasquatch species in North America alone. The Harry and the Hendersons type. There's a chimpanzee type. There's the skunk ape from the Florida region, which is more like an orangutan. And up in New Hampshire, there are really thin 7-foot tall Sasquatches that are fairly shy and hide behind trees. And that's North America. There are dozens and dozens more across the world. Like Biawi especially is supposed to be extremely violent. That's from Australia.
Yeah, I've had a friend of mine, Nelson Dellis, who's attempted to climb Everest 4 times. And he actually brought me a book back from Nepal on the Yeti. And I mean, you look at these stories of these creatures that are just absolutely everywhere, man. It's amazing how this creature just seems to be everywhere.
Well, one of the things that I've wondered for years, and it has to do with Sasquatch, it has to do with ghosts, it has to do with dragons, for God's sake. Every single civilization on the planet, and this stretches back before we were all connected, before the oceans, weren't barriers. We've had legends of Sasquatch. We've had legends of little people, of elvish type people. We've had legends of dragons. We've had, every society has ghosts in their mythology. Why do we think these things are wrong? These people are saying the same things across millennia, across oceans, across continents. There's got to be something to these.
I agree. I don't even have a response to that. Besides, I agree. All right, let's go to the Doug Shelby. Hey, Jason, I'm currently living where you're from. Question is, how much time did you spend at Merrimack River and Mark Twain NF?
NF is National Forest. I've spent time in Mark Twain National Forest. I'm not a fisherman, so I haven't gone to the Merrimack, but I've spent some time in Mark Twain National Forest, and it's beautiful. there, um, there is a story, and I interviewed the man who came up with this of a lost civilization in Mark Twain National Forest. Um, he says that he went into caves and saw carvings of grays, gray extraterrestrials, and he's convinced that the Ark of the Covenant is buried somewhere in Mark Twain National Forest. Is any of this true? Who on earth knows? He said he got chased off of the land by meth cookers with shotguns. So he doesn't know either.
Awesome. Let's move over to Michael Morris, who is asking, what happens if you allow a black-eyed kid in?
I have interviewed lots of people, dozens and dozens of people who have encountered black-eyed kids. None of them has left them in, but I've always wondered, of the people who are young and of good health and they die suddenly in their home, maybe they were the people who let the black-eyed kids in.
I don't know about that, but that does sound like an incredible theory. Maybe a party at their house and somebody lets a black-eyed kid in. That would be weird. For people who may not be familiar with the legend, explain what is allegedly happens when you let a black-eyed kid in.
I don't know. I mean, I've interviewed, like I said, dozens and dozens of people who have encountered black-eyed kids. Nobody's let them into their house because they're too terrified, by the presence. The presence, causes them to be scared, and then they see their black eyes. And every single person I've talked to has made sure they shut the door in their face. It's total speculation that, maybe the people who let the black-eyed kids into their house, they're the ones who, died of natural causes at 35 years old.
Let's go over to Anastasia. What about Glimmer Man encounters?
I have never interviewed anybody who's had a Glimmer Man encounter, but those things fascinate me because it reminds me so much of the Predator. I mean, that's what they're describing is basically the Predator standing on the limb of a tree in the woods looking at them. But that's all I know about the Glimmer Man.
There was a great encounter on the Missing 411 Hunters with Jan Maccabee.
Is that the one that involved it was a sighting close to a high school?
Yeah, it also included the high school. So Jan Maccabee was married to a scientist, a former naval scientist named Bruce Maccabee, who was actually one of the members of the aviary, which was supposed to be this group of people, scientists in the government, who were investigating UFOs very privately. And they had some acreage, and she had been watching this buck deer that she wanted to harvest for a long time. So she went up into her deer stand. I believe it was a Friday or Saturday night. And all of a sudden she heard some noise in the trees, and she kind of looked to her right, and there was one of these Glimmer Man things jumping through the trees like Predator. And she actually ended up getting a couple of pictures of it before it took off. And at that exact same time when that was happening, she or just a few miles down the road, the high school marching band was preparing and practicing for homecoming, and they had a giant UFO over top of the football field.
Right.
Coincidence? Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe not. I've often wondered if a lot of creative people who write novels and movie scripts, if they're actually uh, coming up with the stuff themselves or drawing it from someplace real.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know about that one. I mean, I find it very interesting. That's for sure. Let's go over to Derek here. What about the Melon head kids of Michigan? It rarely gets talked about. I don't even think I know I've heard about this, but I forget what this one's about.
Well, the melonhead kids are all over the country. Honestly, they might be all over the world. That they're supposedly uh, small people with really large heads. They're inbred. They were their parents or grandparents or great grandparents were escapees from a lunatic asylum, and they lived in the woods and bred together, and then they have these inbred children with these large heads, and they wait on rural roads and attack people who just stop, and high school kids who stop and make out in the dark, and they end up eating them. That's a fairly common urban legend.
According to Google, the legend of melonheads has been particularly associated with the Kirtland area of Ohio, where it is said that a doctor, often referred to as Dr. Crow, performed experiments on orphans, causing their heads to swell. Some versions of the story claim the doctor injected additional fluid in their brains of children already suffering from hydrocephalus, a condition causing excess fluid buildup. The children, in turn, killed Dr. Crow, burned down the orphanage, and retreated to the surrounding forest. It is believed they now roam the woods, often seen along Wisner Road and nearby areas. Well, there's nothing creepy about that.
No, but I mean, the same type of story is in Louisiana and in New Hampshire and all over the country.
Weird. Very weird. Man, I wouldn't want to come across one of those. Would not. We got about 6 minutes to go here before we have to say goodnight to author Jason Offutt tonight. What's your favorite UFO story you've written about?
I would have to say the Herb Shermer case from Ashland, Nebraska, from the late 1960s. Herb Shermer was he was in the Navy. When he got out of the Navy, he went to live with his parents in rural Nebraska, and wound up in Ashland, which is south of Omaha, Nebraska. He wanted to be a state trooper, but he ended up being a city cop in Ashland. And the teenagers hated him in that town because he would drive through the Lover's Lane area and run everybody out. But one night around 2:00 in the morning, he was driving outside of town to check on some businesses that were on the outskirts of town to make sure that they were all locked up and nobody was fooling with them. And he saw what he thought was an overturned tractor trailer truck. And he drove up to it and he saw that the lights weren't actually from a truck. There was a large, round, disc-shaped object with red lights around it floating above the ground. And then he didn't remember anything. And when he woke up, it was 20 minutes later. He drove back to the police station, and the other officer there told him not to write the report about it because he would regret it the rest of his life. He went ahead and wrote the report on it, and it made the AP wire. and he became an instant celebrity. He was interviewed by Dr. Leo Sprinkle for the Condon Report from the University of Boulder, and he was hypnotized by a friend of Brad Steiger's, and I interviewed Leo Sprinkle, who was still alive at the time. He might still be, I'm not sure. But I also interviewed Brad Steiger about it. And they both said that he seemed absolutely genuine about his claim that he ran into, especially after the hypnotizing session, that he saw a UFO and that extraterrestrials came out and talked to him. They asked if he was the guardian of this area, and he said yes because he was the cop. And they showed him around the ship. He remembered in hypnosis, and told him how it worked, and that they would come back and visit him later. And the police officer who told him that he would regret reporting that the rest of his life was right, because he did. He went through hell the next few years, and eventually left police work and went into the roofing business. But he was pretty much the talk of UFO, the UFO community for a couple of years back in the late 60s.
That's an incredible personal encounter. Just incredible. When you hear a story like that, what gives it the credence that you did? Because if we look at that type of story on a 2025 brain, people are going to poke holes all in it. But back then, those older stories from the 50s, 60s, 70s, even into the 80s, seem to have so much more credence to them, whether it's this one, whether it's the Andreasen affair, Betty and Barney Hill, or Travis Walton. We tend to believe those ones more.
Well, I believe those more because the ones today, there is so much more reason to fake a story today than there was back in the day, because you got social media, you got influencers, you got TV, you've got all this other stuff. Back then, there was no reason to fake something like that, because you were going to be made a laughing stock. And for him especially, a small town cop bringing this up, and he was the subject of ridicule for years. It made his life miserable, and it did for other people back in the day. So they had nothing to gain from this. So it to me, it lends a lot more credence to them.
Jason, we got just over a minute to go here before we have to say goodnight to you. And I want to say a big thank you for coming back on Spaced Out Radio. It is an absolute pleasure to have you here again. Do us a favor. Tell everybody where they can find your website, your social media, and your books.
Okay, Dave. Yeah, thanks for having me back on. My website's Jason Offutt, JasonOffutt.com. I'm on Facebook, X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, Threads, Blue Sky, Instagram. Just look for me. If you have any questions for me whatsoever, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. Just get a hold of me.
Appreciate you, my friend, and we'll do it again. That's for sure. Jason Offutt, great author. Once again, Jason Offutt, that's OFFUTT.com is the website. Coming up next on Spaced Out Radio, extra small, Lee Strauss joins us for the Q&A. We're going to have a lot of fun talking about the latest UFO hearings coming up in about 10 days.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
Thanks, dude.
Appreciate you.
Man, I'm exhausted. I'm about ready to collapse, brother.
You get going, my friend. Thank you for fighting it, and we'll have you on again when it's not allergy season.
I would really appreciate that. I was not at my best tonight.
I thought you were wonderful, brother. Thank you.
All right. Have a great night, Dave.
Take care, Jay. Jason Offutt, everybody. He's awesome. Awesome. His hay fever is getting to him. I'll be right back. All right. Extra small, how you doing?
Hey, buddy, how are you?
Good, my man. Good.
Well, I'm good too, Dave. It's been one heck of the week just doing some closing out on my project. Boss took us out to lunch today, had a big old fat, juicy burger. It was like that thick.
Nice.
Amazing.
Very nice. That's awesome.
Well,
Love
we
it.
got some stuff to get into tonight, my friend.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Candace, thank you for adding to the super chat. Appreciate that. We got about a minute to go.
Mm-hmm.
Got about a minute to go. It's been a good night, man. Good night.
Yeah, had to move some things around, but at the last second got somebody to fill in, so that was good.
Yeah, good job on that, by the way. All right, big thank you tonight to Tim x2, Fast Hemi, and Candace, Richard, and Rose for the super chats. Greatly appreciate your love and support, everybody. Thank you very, very much. And don't forget this weekend, you got Sweet Robbie G in the hot seat for after hours. That's always good times. Here we go, everybody. Go with the final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate it for you listening on this beautiful planet Earth. We got Major Lee coming up next on the Q&A. We're going to have fun with him, but first we want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Taradiddle. Taradiddle is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to start off this half hour because normally we kick off hour 3 listening to Swamp Dweller and a creepy story, but I've had some audio issues with my computer recently, last few days, and it started with a Microsoft update. And then I got new cameras for our YouTube side, and that threw a wrench in everything too. It did. And now, for some reason, my audio to record is not working. It's not working. So we'll get that figured out. But nonetheless, we still have programming. Here comes Lee Strauss. All right, extra small Lee Strauss. How you doing, my man?
Man, Dave, I am doing good. I am glad to be here. You know, it's been a rough week trying to get things done, but we did it. We've got our TCO for our building, and I'm ready to rock and talk about some UFO stuff tonight.
Me too, my man. Me too. The biggest thing that we need to talk about kicking things off right off the bat is Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna letting out on X today that there are more UFO hearings coming. Yay, that's exactly what we need is more UFO hearings because they're going to solve that issue of them UAPs, my friend. And I know you like a good UAP. That is for sure.
Yep. Especially when I'm in the hospital.
Well, we don't want you in the hospital. So April 29th is when it all gets going, that apparently they are going to have a skiff brief with a UAP expert or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. We don't know really what it is. And we don't know who they're going to be talking to. So people wondering what a skiff is, A skiff is called a sensitive compartmented information facility. So what does that actually mean? It is a secure enclosed area used for processing and storing highly classified information. These facilities are typically found in government buildings and on military bases and are designed to prevent unauthorized access and breaches of sensitive information. Skiffs are often equipped with specialized security measures to ensure the integrity and confidentiality of the information they handle. So apparently, Lee, they are going to get into these skiffs and they are
Yep.
going to have a discussion about all weird, strange things. Now,
Yes.
going through the past hearings, we heard where this really became popular is we heard it started with David Grush saying that he could not speak unless it was in a skiff. He could not speak publicly due to his NDAs. He would not
Mhm.
drop names unless it was in a skiff. Everything had to be in a skiff. Lou
Yep.
Elizondo, when he testified last year, he wanted to skiff it on up as well. And I'll be honest with you, I'm tired of skiffs. I really am. What's your thoughts?
Well, yeah, they're ridiculous. I mean, the public wants to know. That's the whole reason we're having these hearings is to let the public know what's going on. And I'm telling you what, it's like you guys aren't worthy of knowing what's going on. We want to hear the truth from these people, and we're going to release the information that we want you to know about. That's what it seems like is going on. It's not like they just want to come out with this and tell us. And that would be great if it was just here's this and this. But no, it's got to be all hidden, and they got to compile everything and find out what to redact before they let anybody know about it. It's stupid. It's aggravating. And frankly, yes, I'm tired of skiffs as well.
I'll tell you why I'm tired of it. Okay. I understand the idea for national security. I do. I can appreciate that there are probably going to be names that are dropped that people may or may not know that are on the inside of track of the information. And it may also include, adversaries that they are dealing with on other cases, events, etc. I get that. I can appreciate that. Okay. However, these politicians are voted in by the people for the people.
Hmm.
They should not be able to harbor any type of secret like that with redaction
Hmm.
or with the idea that they are allowed to be in the know, but their constituents who voted them in are not allowed. This is the beef I have with this. Now, if it was, let's say, Lee, you're General Lee Strauss, and you need to be read in for military purposes, I can understand full top secrecy. I get that. I can appreciate that. I can respect that. But these politicians, when they are elected in, it doesn't matter whether it's in the United States, Canada, France, Portugal, Australia, wherever it may be, when they are elected in by the people to do the job. Their job is not to hold on to secrets. Their job is to be the voice of the public. And it seems like we've gotten away from that. And you can't solve anything or talk about transparency like they are if you're hiding the information inside a skiff.
Well, here's the thing. You can get the individual up on the stand and you could omit certain things. Don't say locations, don't say names of programs, and don't call anybody by their name. And just admit those things. So that way, if you take those guardrails and put them in place, you should be able to just let everything else fly. Yes, ET's been here. Yes, we have craft. Yes, we're back engineering craft. How hard is that to just come out and say that, right? Um, it seems like a lot of that has been said, but it's not been said officially, right?
I think you bring up a good point. And look, we may be oversimplifying this. I'm not naive enough to say that we're not oversimplifying it, but this topic is getting a little bit ridiculous. Okay, with the high-end secrecy of it all. The
Yeah.
American public has a right to know. Number one. Number two, in my opinion, and I might be wrong on this as an outsider looking in, because I am a foreign national, these projects should not be turned over into private industry.
Mm-hmm.
Because the minute something is turned over to private industry, whether it's Lockheed Skunk Works, whether it's Boeing, Raytheon, Palantir, whoever it may be, they do not have to answer to any FOIA requests. And if the government is putting secret technology in their hands, like UFO reverse engineering, that should be public matter because the government is paid for by you, the citizen. Right? This isn't an argument about millionaires versus billionaires, Bernie Sanders going absolutely crazy, that we got to tax the hell out of everything. Okay, it isn't anything like that. But the reality is they are turning over these pieces so that way they get to hide them from the public. To me, that should be illegal.
It absolutely should be legal, Dave. I heard a little bit, I heard a little something too. Apparently, David Grush is going to be involved with a lot of these skiffs. And there are 20 people, publicly unnamed people, that are involved with these hearings coming up. Now, the other thing that I heard is that a lot of them are basically going to be like bad actors. They don't want to release this information, but they are going to be subpoenaed.
Well, they need to be subpoenaed if they don't want to talk.
Right.
Right? They need to be subpoenaed.
Yep.
And, I understand. Look, the last hearings that took place, Nancy Mace came out on X basically saying this wasn't a time to try and sell your book. That was a direct shot at Lou Elizondo, who said, well, I put it in my book, or you might want to read my book. Not the place to do that. Okay. Yeah. The public hearings are for answers. It's not about, well, we got to talk at a skiff or read my book or whatever it may be. Or you got Mike Gold sitting there begging for money for NASA like a lapdog asking for a treat. Just throw him a milk bone and he'll be happy. Right?
Yeah. Well, did they actually give us dates on, let's see. So May 12th, is that correct? May 1st?
Well, here's the breakdown of everything. April 29th, the skiff brief with UAP experts. Follow that up April 30th and May 1st. There's going to be a roundtable with experts, officials, and members of Congress. But it's not outlined whether or not that will be a public affair. Then the week of May 12th, there is a full committee hearing on UAPs.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the thing about this, though. Okay. What are they going to be able to tell the public? If they are meeting in the skiff and then having a round table, and let's say that round table is private, not in a skiff, but in private, what are they going to tell people coming out of that? You have to give the people something. Here they are bragging, and Anna Paulina Luna even brags in one of her tweets that how this is something that both sides of the aisle, the Republicans and Democrats, are on a united front about finding out what this is, finding out what is going on. And I think that is great. I wish government would work more together on situations like that. But what are they going to tell us? The media, the public, the experiencers, the scientists, because we're all there on bended knee waiting for that information. We really are. And if they're not going to provide the information, what's the point of continually leading us on with the fact that you're going to have more hearings?
What if there's something else that they're trying to do here, Dave? What if they're getting all these people out, these 20 people, and they're all going to say, no, this stuff doesn't existed. Now they can say, the government can say, well, we've talked to all these, alleged witnesses and these people that should know something about this stuff. And they're saying that it's not really happening. If we get some sort of a blanket statement from all of these people, maybe they can sweep it under the rug. Maybe that's what they're going to try to do.
Well, I mean, the one thing that Luna says on her X account, she goes, this inquiry into UAPs has been the biggest bipartisan intergovernmental investigation in U.S. history. We look forward to the upcoming investigations, and want to give a special thank you to Mr. David Grush for providing advice to us. So we know he's intertwined with this.
Yes.
Who's he choosing? That's the big one. How many of these names? Is it going to be some of the same names that we heard about, whether it's James Lukatsky or Jay Stratton? Is Elizondo going to be there again? What about Bill Nelson? I mean, there's a big list of names that are currently out there. Or are we going to have a bunch of hidden Dr. Sean Kirkpatricks who are going to play the nothing to see here card?
Well, that's what my thought is maybe that's what they're going to do. Well, they'll, if they're not listening to 4 or 5 of us, maybe they'll listen to 20 of us. If we're all saying that, what we've got is our technology, and that's what you've been seeing in the skies lately is our technology. Obviously it doesn't stop the things that happened before, before drones and all of that, but maybe they're just going to wipe it out, Dave. I think that may be what we're going to be looking at here. I'm
going to throw a little conspiracy theory at you, Lee.
Okay.
Out of the 350 plus Congress people that there are, 350, 400 Congress people, there is a handful, 20 or 30, that have a real interest in this subject.
Yeah.
We think in the UFO world that this is a massive subject. Okay, but we know there's maybe, let's even expand it to 50. Let's say there are 50 Congress people that have an interest in there. I'm just Googling how many Congress people are there.
Yeah.
Okay, so pardon me. There's 535 members of Congress. 100 serve in the U.S. Senate, 435 serve as House of Representatives. So I learned something today. So that's really cool. So let's just say that there are 50 of those 435 who actually have a real interest in this subject. That isn't much. That means it's still a niche subject. So here's my conspiracy theory on this. We know people like Nancy Mace and Anna Paulina Luna are veterans. Okay, we also know that there are people out there who've had sightings or just curiosity. What if they are doing it just for their own benefit?
Well, maybe they are.
What if they're doing it with no intention of giving it to the public, but to serve their own curiosity about whether or not we have alien bodies, whether or not we have the craft, where are they, what have we developed off this technology, if anything? What if it's all selfish? And that's why when they preach for transparency and then they go into these private meetings and come out and say nothing, that's the reason why we continue to get nothing.
Well, that's a good idea. That's a really good thought. I haven't thought about that. I mean, that's what I'd want to know, right? I mean, if I was in government, I'd want to know what the heck is going on. Where's the tax money going? and all of that sort of thing. I'd have to think that the constituents, Dave, that the constituents of the congressmen and whatnot are saying we want to know this information. I mean, we've been beating them around the bush for so long, and it seems like the more and more visible this thing gets, the UFO and the Tic Tac and everything that's been going on lately, it seems like the more and more people want to know about it, and so maybe they're just bowing down to their constituents right now and saying, yeah, we're going to try to get this information out. And the information that they're actually going to get out is there's nothing to see here. I keep thinking that, Dave. I just keep thinking that that's what's going to happen again and again and again and again. And it's going to be us that has to go out and get the real evidence, whatever you would consider real evidence.
Well, I think it's a curiosity that I have regarding this, whether or not they're doing it for themselves. Because you get Tim Burchett, and God bless him for doing the job that he is doing and keeping this public. Okay, because I think the real faces of this have been Nancy Mace, Tim Burchett, and Anna Paulina Luna. Okay, and good for them for keep bringing this out. The issue that I have is every time Tim Burchett opens his mouth, he mentions one word. Can you guess what that word is?
UAP?
Besides UAP, good guess. Transparency. Where is it? Okay. It's like trying to find your dog that's running away through a mountain passage that's filled with trees. Where's the dog? Yep. Where's the transparency? There is none. They've had 80 years to perfect this cover-up. Nearly 80 years. They're not just going to give it up for the sake of transparency. They're not going to do that. And and here's the other thing too. I think what happens when they go into these skiffs and these private meetings is they're molding the narrative of why they can't go public with this. Grant Cameron, my hero and mentor, he calls it managing magic. Because when you can manage the narrative, the public is going to buy it. It's just like when they managed the narrative of changing it from UFO to UAP.
Yeah.
From managing the aliens or extraterrestrials to NHI. And now you see the group Skywatcher changing CE5 or summoning to psionics. And now they're trying to change the name of craft that people have recognized for years. They want to rename them because they think that old names are all about stigma. Okay, what's the old theory? That if you don't, about history, that you're doomed to repeat it if you don't respect it?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. That's where we are. That's where we are heading. They're trying to change the entire story. They want us to forget about everything outside of Roswell. They want us to forget about absolutely everything prior to the 2004 Nimitz incident. And the problem that we have is with all the new faces that have come in, they're buying into UAP. They're buying into NHI. They're buying into psionics. They're buying into all of it. And I don't see that being healthy. And Lee, I'll get your opinion on that much more as we continue on with
This is Spaced Out Radio. Your host, Dave Scott.
Did you finally get a foamy for your microphone?
No, A foamy? What do you mean?
Like,
No, it's not a foamy. I think it's just because I'm wearing a black shirt today. I don't know.
oh, because I'm not hearing you pop tonight.
Oh,
When you use the letter P or T, G
yeah.
is not so bad, but hard letters, they pop.
Aha.
I'm not hearing it tonight.
Well, maybe I've got it a little bit farther away tonight.
Mm-hmm. It's like,
Ah,
damn it, now I got to put this thing back on.
yep. Now you got a problem. Look what you did.
There we go. Broken Shadow Feather, how you doing?
You know, Dave, you might be the only person I know that can suck sardines out of a sardine can without opening it up.
The hell does that mean?
I don't know, but I like it.
You know what? I'm going to give props to Nicole Sackich. She thinks that on the Spaced Out Radio store, we need a t-shirt that says "Skiff this."
There you go. I like that.
And I'm going to add something to it because I'm going to find an alien giving the middle finger,
Mm,
and then we'll put
There you
"Skiff
go.
this" above it.
I like it.
Yeah. I think that'll be a good shirt.
Microphone condom. Is that right?
Oh, my
Well,
ears are...
anyway, I won't be down there in Las Vegas to test that theory out.
And I'll tell you, it'll never happen, dude, because I hate fish. Can't stand fish.
Well, we can use a can of Vienna sausage. We'll try that one.
Let me see. What is my pngtree.com? I'm going to see if I can find an alien with a middle finger.
You know what I noticed is once you have your music going, that's when the audio cuts out on your microphone.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that. I know that.
Does your
Let's see here.
does that music play through your speakers?
No, what happens is StreamYard has an issue with multiple audio playing at once. So what happens is StreamYard drowns out one of the two audios. Now, if you go back and listen to the podcast, it's clear as day.
Oh, gotcha.
You don't notice it. It is only on YouTube
Hmm.
that it happens because StreamYard does not
It's probably
does not allow for that. So what I may do in order to get rid of that is I may shorten up the music, and like when we go into break, I won't talk over it. I'll just say, hey, we're going to go to break here, and then we'll take the music out. I may do that. But it is a StreamYard problem. Rob and I have been looking into that, trying to cure that, because Rob is somebody who is very well versed in audio tech, and he's looked into it because he hates it. He absolutely hates it, you know. And there with StreamYard, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
Now, if we went to another program, whether that was OBS, which I can't stand,
Yeah.
or
It's hard.
it's very difficult to use,
Mm-hmm.
then we would have that, you know, and maybe that's hurting our YouTube numbers, is that it does sound like shit right at the beginning, you know.
But that only started recently, you know.
It's been getting gradually worse. I've noticed it probably the last 8-9 months because people started making comments.
Mm.
So big thank you to Richard Rose, Fast Hemi, Tim ×2, and Candace for the great super chats. Really appreciate it. All right, here we go. In about 7 seconds. Go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio. Next, all these drugs. Here's the Q&A. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, our archives are always free on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. You know, Lee, it's always that time of the night where we like to thank all the agents and agencies tuning us in, you know, sharing their love of the mighty SOR when we talk about this stuff, getting us blacklisted all over the place. You know, give us a call sometime. We really do appreciate it. We don't need to give you the phone number. Why? Because you already got it. You already got it. Give us a call just to say hello. Tell us how much you enjoy the show. So thank you to the alphabet agencies. Appreciate it.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Listen good. You know, we were talking before the show, Dave, and one thing that occurred to me, or not before the show, but before the break, one thing that occurred to me is maybe some of these Congress people are getting kickbacks from some of these companies that are using alien tech or working with alien tech as well. And they're saying, hey, why don't you just keep this quiet for a little bit longer or drag it out as long as you can until we can perfect this technology and get it to market?
Could be. That is a very good reason. I mean, let's face it. It is all about money.
Uh-huh.
Okay. We are literally sitting on, if let's just say it all played out. Okay. Let's just say it all played out. We are sitting on a new multi-trillion dollar industry.
Mm-hmm.
That is why we see all of these groups, whether it's Ryan Graves, whether it's Gary Nolan, whether it's Jacques Vallée, or anybody putting it together, any of these UFO groups and agencies like the Soul Foundation or the one out of Harvard or you know, by Avi Loeb or whatever coming together. And there's probably 20 or 30 of them now. The UAPDF or DA, whatever, DP, whatever the hell it's called, they're all over the place. And they're all vying for the same thing. Okay. Yeah. Ryan Graves, no offense to him, great veteran, great fighter pilot, puts together a group that, you know, that we have to protect aviation skies from these UAPs.
Yeah.
Where's the threat? You know what builds money? Threat narratives.
That's exactly right. Yep. I believe that 100%. You know, it seems like, you know, we're supposed to be scared of Russia and we're supposed to be scared of China. And now we're supposed to be scared of aliens, possibly, maybe. It just, you know, they're going to pad their wallets with it. That's what they're going to do. One of the other thoughts that came across the desk here, just ran by and actually just shot out the door. But one of the other thoughts was, you know how the Thomas Edison's light bulb is still burning in the Smithsonian, right? Well, all of a sudden we have light bulbs, but they burn out. So we need another one and we need another one. Same with batteries draining all the time. But what if they have that technology somehow to where whatever they're coming out with lasts forever and they can't have you and I and everybody else have that sort of technology because nobody's making money on it again and again and again and again, right? So they have to figure out how to take that alien technology and make it only last a certain amount of time because, you know, they would never get more. It's possible they won't get more and more money for that product. You know what I'm saying? So it needs to have a shelf life of some sort for you and I and everybody else.
Well, you know what? The question is, what is that shelf life?
Mhm.
And who knows about it? Who's going to profit from it? That's the big one. I mean, we see people like Peter Thiel getting involved behind the scenes in the UFO world. We see them controlling the message. We
Mhm.
see, Lockheed Skunk Works playing games. We see psionics testing at 29 Palms, one of the worst places you could ever psionics test.
Hmm.
Like, why would you do it in airspace that is near a restricted airspace for flight testing? Boy,
Yeah.
nobody's going to play a joke there.
Well, is it for plausible deniability or saying, well, we saw something in the sky, but obviously it could be whatever we have, from Skunk Works or any of that at that time,
Mhm.
or so who knows what their purpose would be for that. I'm not
That
aware.
is true. I want to change topics with you. We got about 15 minutes left. I
Yeah.
want to change topics with you because there is a lot of controversy right now regarding the latest Blue Origin flight that had an all-female. I'm going to call it the word crew, but let's be honest, it's not a crew. A crew is actually working. Okay? When you have a crew, they are doing a job. You're not sitting in a pod doing nothing. None of them
Passengers.
are flying the craft. None of them are controlling the speed. None of them are controlling the altitude. None of them are doing anything for the safety of that rocket. So let's not call them a crew, as many media outlets are. Now, if you missed it, this was an all-female group. Recording artist Katy Perry. Oh, my dream girl. Oh, I love her. Gail King, Oprah's best friend, and Lauren Sanchez, former NASA scientist Aisha Bowe, and civil rights activist Amanda Nguyen, along with movie producer Carrie Ann Flynn. So here they are. They go up in space. The average time they are in there is about 8 minutes before the descension starts. I don't know about you, and I'm not trying to sound like a jerk here. There may be some people saying that I'm going to make a real misogynist comment here. Like, to me, it doesn't matter that it was an all-female group going up there. That does not bug me whatsoever. Here's what bugs me. They're not astronauts. Can we please not call them astronauts?
Yeah.
You know, I guess my beef with that is, yes, they have now officially been to space, but they are not astronauts. Astronauts, that's a title that you work hard for. And some people have been lined up to fly on shuttles or rockets or whatever it may be, okay, for years, decades, and never got a shot to go. Or maybe, just maybe, they only got one chance at it
Yeah.
to go up in space. And they trained for decades. These people on Blue Origin who are going on up for a joyride, which costs you need to put down a $150,000 deposit. And trust me, if I had the money, I totally would, Lee. I totally would, because it would be the ride of a lifetime. And
Yeah.
yes, there is danger to it. That rocket could explode. There's a lot of danger to it. It's the ultimate thrill ride.
Right.
Okay. But that's what it is. It's the ultimate thrill ride. And for people now coming down and saying Gail King is an astronaut or Katy Perry is an astronaut, you didn't earn that title.
No. They
Your
only
thoughts?
trained they only trained for 2 days, Dave. Holy cow. I mean, and what the joke is, they learned how to get in and out of the capsule. They learned how to buckle their seatbelt and climb back out of the capsule. I mean, that's what they trained for 2 days, is from what I understand, and maybe how to, hold yourself correctly, or I don't forget what the term is, but when you're experiencing a bunch of G's, what you need to do to compress, and hold your breath and grunt as you're dealing with a lot of G's as you're going up. But that's all they learned, really.
Look, I'm excited about the project. Space
Mm-hmm.
tourism, I think it's fantastic. Okay. I really do. And like I said, if I had the $25 million to actually do this, I totally would. I don't even have enough for a $150,000 deposit.
Yeah.
Okay. But just the idea that we are now taking those adventures, it's great. But they're not astronauts. It's the same thing in the UFO world. We have all of these people self-titling themselves as journalists because they wrote a blog for a website or on their own website or on Facebook. Now all of a sudden they call themselves journalists. No, you've never worked in journalism. You don't know how journalism works. You've never been on the beat. You've never had deadlines. You've never understood how a story works with point, counterpoint. But we're in a day of self-titling where titles mean everything. And the fact that, and it's not just these ladies, it's everybody else now. And I think there's been 4 or 5 of these launches that Blue
Yeah.
Origin has done. Now, all of
Mm-hmm.
a sudden, all these people who paid money to earn the title of astronaut. Go ahead. You want to say something?
That's the thing. I mean, an astronaut actually gets paid by NASA or government to work on a spaceship or a rocket or whatever. They're getting paid for that. They're getting paid while they're training and all of that stuff. So, if you're having to pay to go into space, you're not an astronaut. You're a tourist. You're a passenger is what you are. Just like you would be on a plane. Are you a pilot now that you've flown on a plane? I mean, does that make sense?
Just because I cook a meal in my house doesn't make me a chef.
Exactly.
I'm just a cook,
Uh-huh.
right? And I'm not even a trained cook, right?
Yeah.
Nicole Sackage will get that one. She's in our chat room. I want to ask a question because in our chat room right now is Aviation Hall of Famer and former guest on this show. He has a free pass to come on this show anytime. Jim Goodall was
There he
just
is.
named into the U.S. Aviation Hall of Fame. And congratulations, Jim. Outstanding. We love you and well deserved for this award. And Jim, I know there's a little bit of a delay. So for our radio audience, we do broadcast these shows live on YouTube as well, if you don't know. And Jim is a giant supporter of what we do. And I want to ask Jim this question. And there will be a little bit of a delay for Jim to answer. But as someone who is now in the Hall of Fame for aviation in the United States, Jim, the question that I have is, should these people who go up on the Blue Origin rockets be classified or be able to use the title of astronauts? And once again, it has nothing to do with the latest Blue Origin all-female group that went up. Nothing to do with that. Okay. It doesn't matter from what launch 1 to whatever launch this was, 6, 7,
Yeah.
whatever it may be. Do they have the right to call them that? That's what I want to know. So that is an important question. You know?
it is because the media definitely is stepping out and calling them astronauts. I saw one of the news stories and I'm like, are you kidding me? That's almost a slap in the face for people that have trained for decades, like you said.
Right?
Yeah.
That's like flying a Cessna plane and then stepping into an SR-71 and saying that that you're qualified to fly that aircraft
Yeah. Yeah.
and fly it at 100,000 feet. That's not how it works.
Oh,
It's
not
not
at
how it
all.
works at all. I find it frustrating because we are so hooked on titles now.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's supposed to give us some sort of credibility. All right. Here's Jim Goodall, Hall of Famer in the United States Aviation. He goes, "No, I rode in the cockpit of an A-12 Blackbird inside a C-5A Galaxy, but I didn't get a Mach 3 card." So literally, the C-5 Galaxy was transporting this Blackbird inside of it, and Jim got to ride in the cockpit of the Blackbird while it's flying inside the Blackbird's not flying. The C-5 Galaxy's flying
Right.
this Blackbird to a museum.
Yep.
So, just because you sit in the cockpit, hey, when I was a kid, man, and I'd go to my local air show, I've sat in the cockpit of an A-10, an F-18, an F-15, and many
Yep.
others. That doesn't make me a fighter pilot because I sat in the cockpit. So
Yep.
thank you, Jim, for the answer. No, they do not deserve to be called astronauts. And I'm sure some people will disagree with that, but that's okay. That's okay.
Well, this is the way we're going. I mean, everybody seems to be getting their little piece of the pie, even though they didn't work for the pie. So I hope soon that whole thing starts to turn around, but I have a fear that it will not.
No, with the increase in social media, this is why people do it. This is why
Yeah.
people do it. As a radio guy, I find it funny when I listen to podcasts, and they talk about how they're on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
You're not on the
Yep.
radio. We're on the radio because we're syndicated. That means we're a radio show. But you get all these channels where it's like, UFO and Aliens Radio, Bigfoot Radio.
Yep.
Which radio station do you broadcast on? Well, I broadcast on my YouTube channel. Well, you're not doing radio.
Exactly.
Like, am I being too much of an a-hole here? Is that what it is?
I don't think you are. I even know my limitations, right? There's no way that I could do what you do. You are magnificent at it. Going on the radio, knowing when to cut, when to turn your music on, and introducing the guests. You've got your little things that you say before and after, each commercial. You've got it down pat.
I don't know. I'm just not into this self-titling thing.
Yeah.
Really am not. It irks me.
It's like everybody needs a participation trophy or something,
That's a good point. That's a good point. We got 2.5 minutes to go here. And, that might be a controversial subject. I don't know. I'm assuming there will probably be some people out there who, are shaking their fist at, I will never listen to spaced out radio again because they are astronauts, darn it. Right? I'm sure we'll see that. But I'm okay with that because I think every now and again, instead of worrying about the feeling of it all and the title of it all, we need to have a little bit more common sense in realizing that people have worked hard to become astronauts, and
And
some
pilot.
people never got to do it. So imagine being somebody who works for NASA, say during the shuttle program when all of a sudden they scuttled it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you'd been training 10, 15 years, and your shuttle mission was coming up. Maybe it was 2 launches away, 5 launches away, and then they scuttle it. And your dream of going to space is gone. You trained to be an astronaut. You earned that title of astronaut, even though you didn't get to go to space. And now all of a sudden, if you have enough money, you could go spend 5, 8 minutes in space and come back down with your astronaut badge. I mean, this
Yeah.
isn't Boys and Girl Scouts where you just get the badge for it. I'm sorry, it bugs me. It bugs me.
And I think we laid it out pretty clear, as far as your opinion, my opinion on the whole thing. I think that we came up with plenty of examples why, if you're in a plane, you're not going to call yourself a pilot just because you're riding a seat. So it's the same thing. There's really no difference at all. These people paid just like you would pay to get on a plane and flying the plane. You're not a pilot. So
If I have a headache and decide to take aspirin, that doesn't make me a pharmacist.
yeah.
If I cut myself and decide to put a Band-Aid on it because I pulled a hangnail off and my toe is bleeding, it doesn't mean that I am a doctor or a nurse because I put a Band-Aid on. Right?
Yeah.
We
Mhm.
get behind the wheel to drive a vehicle every day. It doesn't mean that we are race car drivers.
There
The
you go.
self-titling needs to end, for the sake of clicks and likes and subscribers. It's got to end, hopefully one day. So, thank you. Hello to Mr. Rock in the background. Show. Thank you to everyone in our chat. YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn, I know you're out there somewhere. Remember, this show is copyright. It's Cryptid Out Radio. That's the RTD Adventures Limited. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Because together, my friend, make a mistake. We're watching. We need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the little train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for that. Good night, everybody.
Oh my gosh. Did you see what Mel put down?
What did Mel put down?
He said, I take off my
clothes to shower, so I'm a stripper.
That's classic right there. That's awesome.
I like it. I like it. I like it a lot. April. What's the date today? 18.
Yep. Yeah, Dave's working on the audio. Now, why would that be? Why would insurance companies raise premiums in Hawaii up to 1,300% higher? Huh. They did that, raising premiums in California and Florida as well for fire danger and hurricane danger. Yeah. Because of greed. Anyway, I don't have anything else for the good of the order tonight, Dave.
Well, just enjoy. Enjoy, man. You're with the people, for the people, by the people. What do you pay for car insurance there in Washington State?
My car insurance is currently, it's wrapped up in my home insurance. So I don't know. It's around $237, but that's with, it's the umbrella policy that I have. So,
oh, must be nice.
What are you paying up there, bud?
I pay about $200 a month for my vehicle.
Yeah,
That's with a 40% discount.
Yeah, I think mine's around 160, but my stepbrother is my insurance agent, so I get kind of a sweetheart deal.
Right. I wonder if this is going to work.
I don't have any speeding tickets or wrecks or anything on my license or my whatever it is.
All right.
Well, I'm out of here.
All right, buddy. You go.
See you all later.
All right, my man. Thanks, mate. Extra small.
You're
Lex
welcome,
Diaz,
Dave.
how you doing? Have a good night.
You too.
Bye. I'm Dave. All right. Let's go like this. Bring that out here in a second. Probably not going to download for a second, a minute or two. Show you guys something here once it downloads. There we go. I'm trying to find a logo. Let's see here. All right. There's a lot of them on here. Cool. That's going to work. That's going to work. Nope, not there. I wonder if that logo is free. Let me see this. That's a good one. No, of course not. That would be a good one if it was. Maybe I'm typing this in wrong. Nope. Nothing. That's a werewolf middle finger. An alien. Damn it. Oh well. Probably get AI to do one. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We are glad to have you here as we have Jason Offutt, author, researcher, instructor. Hello and from the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, Lee Strauss will be here for the Cryptid Report. That sounds perfect on podcast. Sounds perfect. I'll have to listen to this. Amplified 200. Paul Parvo, how are you? Are you Howl? Howl Parvo? John Jackson, how you doing? All right, guys, I want y'all, I'm going to get this edited up here. I want y'all to head over to Sweet Robbie G's channel, the Social Dig. Go hang out over there. If you haven't, hit subscribe, ring that bell. And we're going to make things happen over there as he continues on the night, because that's what Sweet Robbie G does best. Don't forget, if you come to our Vegas event, you will get to pull not only Sweet Robbie G's chin hair, but Tim Mothman and his goatee's chin hair as well. It'll be a good one. Tug away, people. Tug away. All right. Thank you tonight to Tim Mothman and his goatee ×2, to Candace, to Richard and Rose for the great super chats, along with Fast Hemi. Thank you very much. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. I will see you on Monday, and have a great weekend. See you guys. Bye, Dry Toast. Bye.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.